And welcome to the FeedBak podcast, everybody. My name is Back. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 197. I think, yeah, 197. And as I said, and I've said before, I'm focusing on comedy. I've had a lot of people on so far. I plan on having a whole lot more on. Fun talks. There's a lot of shit happening here in Austin, Texas. So, you got to be in it. And in that same vein, I'd like to introduce my guest. I got Brandon. Did I say Lewin? Did I say
Yeah,
it right?
Lewin.
Lewin?
Yeah.
Yes, from Big Laugh Comedy Network. Thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate it in these crazy times.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, bro. I appreciate it. You should have a tagline, bringing it back.
Dude,
The feedback, bringing it back.
dude, do you know how many puns I can do on my name? I should turn into
So
a game
many.
show.
You should, bro. You should have one episode where like everything, like one time per episode, it's a segment, just like a pun, a back pun. So that'd
Dude,
be fucking awesome.
I used to throw events around Austin every three
Uh-huh.
months. I've been in Austin
Oh,
23
nice.
years. I used to throw
Oh,
events
wow. Okay.
every 3 months, and
Uh-huh.
every event had my name in it. I did the back in the day. I did the give back. That was the fundraiser. I
That's
did the
amazing.
backstroke was the boat party. I mean, trust me. I
Oh
think
my
in a day
God.
like mine, the possibilities are endless. At this,
For real, man. That's awesome, though. You should bring all those back. There it is.
oh, I just walked into that one, didn't I?
Wait, so you've been here 23 years, you said?
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Originally from West Africa, grew up in Paris, France, moved to Austin 23 years ago.
Oh, wow. So
So yeah,
what part of West Africa?
Senegal.
Okay. I had a lot of friends from like Nigeria and stuff like that back in Chicago, where I'm originally from. And so we used to get because Nigeria is West Africa too, right?
Yes, West Central, I would say. Like
Okay.
it's more a little bit. It's on the north side, but it's more like it's more inland. Senegal is right on the coast, like as west as
Okay.
you can go on the coast. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you're like true West Side. They're like kind of like fake West Side.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
because that's
can
what
do the W like this.
yeah. Bring it back, baby. Um no, like because they brought me to like one of their friends opened up like a West African restaurant, and I remember I got some food. I don't remember what food I got, but I remember I got some dishes out there, and the food was amazing, really spicy, but it was really good. Yeah, so it's funny like when people say they're from like certain parts of places, like I get it from Chicago all the time, right? Like I say I'm from Chicago. I grew up in Skokie, which is like right outside of Chicago. It's like
Hmm.
literally the suburb next to it and just north of it. But then you get a ton of people who come and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Chicago." I'm like, "Oh, whereabouts?" And they're like, "Naperville," which is like 45 minutes west. And it's like, no, that's not really Chicago, man. I'm like, that like it'll take you like an hour and a half to get in the city alone with traffic. So
Hmm.
it's funny how all that stuff works out. Anyway, I digress.
No, that's
There
fine.
could be
Look, I get it
there's
all the
gonna be
time.
a lot of that. There's gonna be a lot of digressing. So
Look,
I'm just gonna let you know.
like I said, this is not an interview. We're just talking.
Good,
But
good, good.
I get the same shit because I just told you I'm from Paris, France, but I'm not really. I grew up outside of Paris. But if I told you the name of the
Got it.
town,
Yeah,
nobody knows what the hell it is. So I'm like,
exactly.
if you know what the Castle of Versailles is, I grew up 15 minutes away from there.
No kidding. Okay.
So, but I say Paris just so people don't ask me, oh, what's the town really? So, and I even say Africa so people don't ask me what country because they don't know the country I'm from. They'll say
Yeah.
Nigeria like you did, or
Yeah.
South Africa, or Zamunda, or Wakanda, or some shit like that. But I'm like, it's Senegal, forget it. Don't ask me where it is. I don't do a geography lesson.
I've heard of Senegal though. I believe Luol Deng is from over there. Am I mistaken?
Who?
Luol Deng. He was a basketball player. Um,
I don't know. The most famous reference, Akon, is from there.
oh, Akon. Okay.
Yeah,
Is there any basketball players from there?
I think there are. Serge Ibaka, I think, is from Senegal.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah, maybe
think.
that's it. I
I
just
think
the
he is.
name. Yeah, the name for somehow like resonates, and I don't think it was Akon. Like I mean, Akon's Akon. The most I know about Akon is the fact that like two things: he had like multiple wives or has multiple wives, and then he also found Lady Gaga. So he's
Yep.
pretty much just like
He said,
bankrolling. Yeah,
dude,
he's good.
do you know how much people hated Akon in Senegal?
Why?
Because he left when he was a kid and he knew the language. He knows
Uh-huh.
he knew how to speak Wolof, which is the dialect that most people speak there. And he would come back to Senegal and ask for a translator. And that shit doesn't
Shit.
fly because it
I
doesn't
could
fly with
imagine.
yeah, no, people are like,
Yeah.
fuck you, Akon. And then he came back to Senegal now that he's rich. And like you said, he found Lady Gaga. And he's actually trying to get like some kind of power grid or something installed, like trying to help with the because our power grid is worse than ERCOT. It's bad. And he's like, I'm gonna
That
do
bad, huh?
something. Yeah, that bad. Like you know the whole rolling thing that rollout
Yeah.
thing that they kind of did. I didn't get none
Yeah,
of
the
it,
roll.
by the way. They do that in Senegal all the time, so you can be without power for 3 days in a row. So
Wow.
you're using candles, you're doing all that shit, and you're like, yeah, it'll be back, and then it comes back and it dies again, and that's just everyday life. So Akon came back. He's like, all right, I'm gonna fix this. I'm like, we love you, Akon. Now we love you. We love you, Akon.
Get all the translators you want. Just give
Yeah,
us the power,
fine.
motherfucker.
We will learn English. We will learn English just for.
That's what's up, man.
But
So
mhm.
go ahead.
Now, so born and raised in Chicago. I mean, next to Chicago.
Yeah. So I was born in Skokie. Or not born. I was born in Chicago, but I was raised in Skokie. And I actually ended up going to high school. My dad and my mom got divorced when I was 11. So I lived with my dad for a majority of the breakup.
Mhm.
And he kind of bounced around. We actually lived in the city for a while. I still went to school in Skokie because we used like his address, his work address. So I could still go to school with all my friends and stuff like that. So I graduated middle school from Skokie, and then he got remarried to my stepmom, who
Mhm.
lived up in Highland Park, which is the North Shore, and that's where I ended up graduating from high school. And then high school, I got into DePaul University, and which is in the city in Lincoln Park, and that's where I ended up going to college for a couple of years. But yeah, man, it was weird because like Skokie is the little UN, right? Like because it's so close to Chicago,
Mhm.
there's like every nationality in there. Like my
Really?
best friend, my best friend living next to me was Filipino.
Mhm.
My one of my good friends that lived down the street was Haitian. I had friends that were, white and Catholic. I had Russian friends. I had Indian friends. I had black, Hispanic. I mean, across the board. Like it was like I was the white Jewish kid in Skokie, which Skokie actually used to be known as like the place where a lot of Jewish people lived, but
Mhm.
it's really morphed especially when I was younger. And so I was the minority in the group of my friends, and it was. I never thought about it though, and then I moved to Highland Park and went to high school there, and it's predominantly white and Jewish. I was like, holy shit, where are all the black people and Hispanic? Where's everyone else? Why is it just one group of people? And it's so funny because I migrated to making friends with more of the minorities in the school, just because that's who I was comfortable with.
Did you pick up on those cultures? Because I mean, you're hanging out with the Haitians.
Yeah.
You start picking up on some of their the Creole or whatever. I mean, their French is funny to listen to.
Yeah, it is, and they
But I
used to
love it though.
speak it. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it was cool as hell for me. Like I'd spend time in the houses and everything was different, but I always soaked it up. My like funniest thing is like my best friend who lived next door to me was Filipino, and so Filipino is like the food is so interesting to me because the food is really good, but like they would mix like American food with Filipino food specifically for breakfast. I remember one time I went over there and had breakfast with them, and they
Mhm.
had like pancakes and waffles, and then they had white rice and like chicken, and it was
Rice
like
for
the most.
breakfast?
Yeah,
Even
man,
in
they were eating
Africa, we
rice.
don't do that. That is sacrilege, man. What the?
Yeah, dude, they
Wow,
were.
this some
Yeah,
fusion shit right here.
bro, it's just like I think it's just like Asian cultures. They just eat rice all the damn time. So it was just wild to me, though. I was like, I guess I'll eat some rice with my waffles and syrup. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not gonna say no to this. So
I'm
it
sorry, that sounds gross.
yeah. It's funny too. Like some of my other best friends, but like two of these kids I really grew up for a long time. They were twins,
Mhm.
white kids, And I used to go to their house all the time, and it was the first time I ever ate like Brussels sprouts. But like thinking back on it, I was like, no wonder I never really liked eating at their house. Although I stayed there all the time for dinner,
Mhm.
um, I never liked eating there, and I think it's because they cooked like regular white people. There was no actual seasoning. Like they thought salt was seasoning, and so it was just like, and I was so used to these other cultures, man. I was like, damn, where's the actual seasoning? I'm like, fucking white people.
You know, that's interesting because like like growing up in France, people always ask me, so do you know French food? And I'm like, well, not really, because I grew up with African food. And the
Yeah.
only time I had French food was when I go to my friend's house, and even that, some of them had like Italian roots, some of them was from the West Indies, and also my parents were not big fans of. Oh, you go eat, you have food here. Why would you go eat over there? Like that kind of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but uh, I don't know what actual American cuisine is like.
It's not good. It's not.
Burger and fries.
I
Even
mean,
fries are not for
burger
me.
and fries.
Fries are
Yeah,
not for
burger and
me.
fries is good. Yeah, it's that. I mean, that's good. You can't really mess that up. But like,
Oh
you
yeah, you
think about
can.
like,
Yeah, you can.
yeah,
You can fuck up
I
a
guess you
burger,
could.
man.
Yeah, I guess you could. I forgot one comedian had a joke where they're like, they were talking about tuna casserole. They're like, you should never mix the two. Oh, Chappelle Lacey, who was just here a couple weekends ago,
Uh-huh.
black guy. He got adopted by a white family when he was a little bit older, and he remember he has this whole bit about like tuna casserole, which is like noodles and tuna and like some other stuff. And he was like, why would you mix the two together? Like just put tuna by itself and pasta by itself. Like you don't need to mix the but that's like white people cuisine right there, like or like American cuisine. Like it's not good. It's not very good.
I
But
didn't.
burgers and fries are good. Pizza I guess is pizza is more, I guess, the style that you have, right? Is different than what you might have in like Italy or some shit like that. But yeah, man, it's not my favorite cuisine. And then
Nah.
you have the country fried steak.
Fried. I think
This,
fried food is American though.
yeah. Oh, of
Fried
course.
shit, just whatever you can fry it.
Where
And
else do you go in the world that you could find fried food like you do in the United States?
I don't
Nowhere.
know. No.
Yeah, because we're like, hey, let's take something good and fry it, and then we'll make it really unhealthy, but it'll taste delicious. That's American for you.
Let, let,
It's like
let's
how.
let's do an experiment and fry Twinkies just for the fuck of it.
Dude, have you ever had a fried Twinkie
No, I'm
before?
trying to live, man. Instant diabetes is not for me.
Bro, so that or fried Oreo, like, whew, it is
No, no.
good though, man. It's definitely like try it once and that's it. But like anything fried is good, and then like it's sort of like anything with bacon is good too.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah.
When
So like, go ahead.
I saw that the was it Denny's or IHOP that had a bacon week. Remember that? And it was
No,
everything with bacon, like pancake with bacon, Sunday with bacon on it.
oh geez, that
Yes.
that is serious bacon, man. Yeah, I don't mess with Denny's, man. I'm trying to live too, bro. But yeah, man, bacon, like you could have chocolate covered bacon, and that is delicious. It is so good.
Uh,
I like how the look you're giving me. Like, no, I'll take your word on it. I'll take
no,
your
you know
word on it.
what? I'll keep an open mind and try everything once. If I don't like it, I don't like it.
Exactly.
It's good to discover new stuff. But so what was the comedy click for you like when you were a kid in Chicago? Because I know the comedy scene in Chicago is pretty big, right? Was it big? It was
Yeah,
already big back then, I would assume.
yeah. It was. Second City was what
That's right.
it was.
Hmm.
Second City is the claim to fame in Chicago, and I took some classes when I was younger, in my like early 20s, at Second City, and I really enjoyed it. Um, but like I grew up, my dad grew up. We watched everything. I watched Delirious, a number of times. It was my favorite stand up growing up. Something I probably shouldn't have watched when I watched it, but I had a lot of that growing up. My dad just kind of let me watch whatever the hell I wanted to.
Right.
I watched The Exorcist at the age of 9 for the first
Wow.
time, and yeah, and I laughed at him, and I thought it was funny. Like I don't know if it's like a defense mechanism or what, but like I laughed during all those scary parts, and so much so that those same guys that I used to always bring over or used to go over their house for dinner, I had them over for a sleepover, and we watched that movie. and I knew all the scary parts, I would jump out and scare the shit out of them. And it brought me so much joy. They did not like it at all. They were like, I hate this. This is horrible. And I was like, this is so much fun. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But yeah, I grew up, watching that. My dad used to always listen to like Andrew Dice Clay, Bobby Slayton in the car. We used to listen like comedy albums on the regular. We used to like back in Chicago, we had a shock jockey by the name of Man Cow that was pretty freaking hilarious that we used to always listen to. And then I just grew up like, watching Def Comedy Jam, like all that stuff, man. And honestly, like I tell this to people all the time, is like I never thought comedy could be a business, right? Like or like an option. Like I never really thought the comedy world was something that was accessible to somebody. It was just kind of like you kind of had to fall into it. And so and again, when I was how I was raised was, my dad was an entrepreneur, a business owner. So he knew, like he taught me that side of the world, but again, I never really saw the opportunity to do something in comedy until later in life, man. And so, I always watched stand up. I was always a big fan of it. I did the classes in Second City, but it really wasn't until it got here in Austin about 5-6 years ago in August of 2015 where I started really that same year. I think it was that year. In December or November, I was like, you know what? You only live life once. Like, I really like comedy. I like everything that's going on. I'm like, let me see if I can throw my hat in the ring and do something in this world. And so I started to research stand up and started to learn more about it. And I started to write material and go to open mics. And it wasn't until like a month after doing all that I was like, oh, screw it, I'm going to do my first open mic. So I went up and I did it.
Hold on. Did someone tell you, hey, you should go and try it? Or you had any idea what you were getting into?
I had no idea what I was getting into. No. All I had was like the research that I could find on the internet, which wasn't really much at the time. And I would, and being like the marketing and social media person I am, I started like reaching out to comedians and people online to ask them for advice and stuff. And everyone just kept on saying, just keep writing, keep doing it, keep writing, keep doing it.
Get on
And at
stage.
the time I was like, I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? I'm like, give me some more solid advice than that. And it wasn't until I actually started doing it when I realized, oh, that's what they mean. And so it, man, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I did read though that like the first time's always nerve wracking. And honestly, like I've been doing speaking for the businesses that I've run. And it was a big part of my business. So speaking engagements, and I always try to make it very entertaining. And I always just try to be high energy and try to make people laugh. And I called it infotainment, like they got information, but also entertainment at the same time. And so because I did all that, I was like, man, I probably could really easily translate into the comedy world. I'm like, and I have that delusional mind. It's like the borderline too optimistic, where I just like, I think I could do whatever the fuck I put my mind to, which I really do think that. And I was just like, so I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I went up there and I had my first story. The first bit I did was a story about me losing my virginity.
That's always good.
And yeah, it really set the mood, and it went pretty well. I got a few laughs, and so I ran with it. Like it's like you give me an inch and I will take a mile, man. Like that's kind of my philosophy on stuff. So I got a couple laughs out of it from people sitting in the bar, and the bartenders laughed too. And I don't know if they were laughing at me or with me, but I don't give a fuck what they were doing. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Laughs a laugh.
I was addicted, so I was like, man, I'm gonna do this more. But what kind of happened with that was that I'm an impatient person, and so I started to realize, and also the community down here at the time was very cliquish, and it's hard to break in, right? If you're outsider coming in into the first time, they see you. A majority of the people in Austin at the time looked at you as someone trying to steal stage time from them, right? Or competition. So unless you were their friends, they weren't putting you at the top spots. They weren't letting you on shows and all this stuff. And so I was like, man, like, screw it, I'm gonna take power in my own hands. And so I started an open mic so I could get more stage time on a regular basis. I started producing shows myself with like legit headliners, all by myself, man.
Wow.
And the first show we did, all right, so to kind of go back on that a little bit, I live in Leander. So the other thing with me is that I live in Leander, and at the time, this was like 4 years ago. So it wasn't 2015, it was like 2016, I think, or yeah, it was probably around then. So I have 3 kids and I'm married, and I also run my own business. So I have to be very strategic with my time. And so for me to go out to do 3 open mics in one night and be out till 2 o'clock in the morning is not really possible. So I had to be very smart with how I did things. So I was trying to get on certain stuff and control my time, and it just didn't work out. So that's why I started to take control in my own hands and started doing my own things and open mics and so forth. But I also, being that I lived in Leander, a lot of my friends, when I told them I was doing comedy, because I'm like a naturally funny guy, they were like, oh man, he's going to be great on stage. Like, we'd love to see you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right. I'm like, I do right now. I just got open mics and they're all in the city. They're like, I'm not going to go all the way down there, this and that. I had a few friends that came out and watched me, but I was like, screw it. I'm going to put on a show so I can do like 10 minutes at the top. And then I can have a few other comedians come up, and then I can have a legit headliner. They'll do a solid 45 minutes. And I'll pay them a couple $100, and then I'll pay the other comedians some money too. And I always saw too, is that I never understood how comedians didn't take the comedy serious enough to charge money, like legit money for what they're doing. A lot of times you see a lot of these free shows, you see a lot of like $5 tickets and stuff like that. Right. And like, even at a $5 ticket, like, my philosophy, because coming from a business perspective, is that, you know, it is always good to charge people because there's more of a value to it. They'll actually come knowing that they paid money. If it's free, there's a 50-50 chance they're going to show up, you know, probably even less than that.
Yep. I totally agree with that. What was there anything happening in Leander at the time?
No, not at the time. There was a few, like, no, because I was the first one. I didn't even do it in Leander at first. The first place I did it was at Whitestone Brewery, which is in Cedar Park. And that was the first place I did it. And we did 2 shows there. The first show was, we sold over 100 tickets, and the average ticket was about $17 a ticket. So we made some pretty good money, but I pumped in a couple $100 into like Facebook ads and got people to come. Only about a fourth of the people that came I actually knew. So that was really nice. I mean, it was fun to have those people in there, but the rest of the crowd were strangers that either found me through like the community impact or through Facebook ads. And so again, from a marketing background, I knew how to kind of get the word out there in the right way. And so so that the first show was great, sold out, had 100 tickets. Even people, we maxed out at 100 because that's as much people as we could fit onto their beer garden area on the outside, their patio. We actually had more people who wanted to buy tickets, so it was great. The second show was about 85 tickets or so, and still same kind of ticket price. And then we took a little bit of time off, and I did a couple more shows after that, which still got like 85, 90 tickets. But then, and shows were going really well, but then my marketing business started to take off. So I had to take a little bit of a hiatus from producing the shows, but then people kept on asking me like, hey, Brandon, when are you going to do it again? We'd love to see it, blah, blah. And I also got a little discouraged with Whitestone Brewery because I was bringing in like a buttload of people who were 100 people on average were buying about $40 worth of booze per person.
Oh,
like,
that's when it gets fair, when you got to talk about, hey, how about I get a cut from the bar, because you're getting ticket sales, right? I would assume.
Yeah, I was just getting the ticket sales, but that's the thing, is that they were also charging me $100 for and $100 isn't that much when you look at it, but they were still charging me for the room. And I was like, I'm bringing you all these people who are buying booze. Why do I need to pay you money? And they just kept on being adamant about it. And so I just was like, all right, fine, screw it. And
Mhm.
so I ended up finding another place when I ended up getting back into it, a place in Leander called Leander Beer Market. And
Mhm.
those guys, Luke and his brother, Jency, they're amazing. They were so great. They didn't ask for money at all. They're like, yeah, let's give it a shot. Same thing. We sold about 100 tickets, a little over for the first show, and then people were drinking like crazy, and then we just started doing that on a regular basis for about 6 months. At the
Wow.
tail end, yeah, we did it. I want to say we did about for like 6 months at the tail end of 2019. So it was like the summer of 2019 up until like February of 2020 is when we did our last show there. And then yeah,
COVID.
man, I actually go ahead.
And
What?
then COVID.
Well, so I was gonna go into it, man, is like because at that point I was so in love and had so much fun with what I was doing from the production side of it that I actually stopped doing stand up. I
Yes.
wasn't doing stand up anymore.
Did you
Yeah,
feel like you were that's where you need that was going to be your contribution to the comedy world, and you're like, you know what, I don't have time to go to open mics like you were saying, and then production is what I know, business, marketing, social
yep,
media. So, play on your strength. That makes total sense.
exactly, man. That's exactly what happened. Was I just I quickly realized where my strengths were better utilized, and that's where it was the production side. And so I just stopped doing stand up, and I was just like, let's produce the shows, and it made life a lot easier having that, like, because the most stressful part about doing stand up and producing the show for
Mhm.
me was the stand up part, was like being prepared for the stand up. Like everything else I was very calm about, making sure that we had the right tickets, the advertising, all that stuff. That stuff I was fine with. But when it came to like actually having to put together material and making sure my stuff was really tight, it was just hard. So it was a natural fit to do the business side of things. And my philosophy, and my belief from the get go was always to get the comedians paid. Like even when we first started in shows, I paid like the opening acts who were doing like 5-10 minutes. I still pay them like 30, $35 for coming up there. I remember one girl, Jacqueline, she came up to me after our first show that she did with us, and she told me, she said, Brandon, this is the first time I've ever getting paid for doing comedy. I was like, that's awesome. I'm like, take a screenshot, whatever, because I think I
frame that
Venmoed her money.
frame
Yeah,
that dollar.
yeah, exactly. Frame that $1 that you're getting and the 2 beer tickets, and you'll be fine. So, but yeah, man, it was always nice to be able to pay them money, and people were very grateful for it. So it was fun. But going into when I was picking up steam at the tail end in 2019, I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? I'm going to set a goal for myself to go into 2020 and do this as a full-time gig. And at that time too, I had an opportunity where here in Cedar Park, there's the Cedar HB Center,
Uh-huh.
and there was
Wait,
they
wait, wait, wait.
wanted,
The arena in Cedar Park?
yeah, yeah,
HEB. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been to shows there.
yeah. So I was in contact with them, and I was finding out about actually putting on a show. So I went from like producing 100 people shows to being that I wanted to do a 1,200 person show, and then and
Wow.
yeah, like that's how ambitious I am.
Hey,
Sometimes,
no shame in it.
yeah,
Fuck it.
yeah.
Good.
Exactly, man. I mean, but sometimes you got to be brought down to reality. And luckily, there was this guy. So in that process, I kind of got a crash course into talking to all these large agencies. I was reaching out to, people like WME and CAA and all
Mhm.
these large talent agencies. And people were like, I was asking, like, I remember at the time. So I'm glad I never ended up doing this, but I reached out to see if Chris D'Elia would do a headlining thing, and they're
Oh,
like, "Nah,"
good
and
timing.
and not, yeah, exactly. Well, it was before all that
Yeah,
shit
yeah,
happened,
yeah.
but
Good.
he I remember they told me that he wanted, like, he needed like somewhere around $200,000 for a show, and I was like, what? And then I remember I reached out to Angela Johnson's people,
Uh-huh.
and they also quoted me like somewhere around like 200 or $300,000 for her. And I
Angela
was like,
Johnson, really?
yeah, exactly. So I kept on asking people around that knew the industry and the market a little bit better. I was like, is this right? Like, this doesn't seem right. They're like, that's just a fuck you offer. That's like them just thinking like you could, if you give them that money, they're going to be really happy, but they know that most likely you're not going to give them that money. And so they're just trying to get you off their backs. And I was like, that makes total sense. And that was the case, man. Like, I was dealing with some of these agencies that got passed around. They're like, oh no, talk to this person, talk to that person, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until this guy, Adam, who runs ICM Partners, who to this day I still have so much loyalty and respect for, because he was the only person that would take, I mean, this guy's running a very large agency. He took the time, 30 minutes to talk to me and to give me the lay of the land, and just to be like, Brandon, this is what's happening. He asked me what my plan was. I told him what I was going to do. He said, you know what, you really should bring it back, scale it back. You're doing 100 person shows right now. He's like, go to 200, 300 person shows. Then when you get to 300 person shows and you're doing that on a regular basis, then expand to 1,200. Then you can go from there. And then you have a email list of, 40,000 people or so forth. And then you can go and this and that. And he gave me so much advice, and it was really helpful that I was like, oh man, I appreciate that. So I did scale it back. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to do like a 200, 300 person show. And I was like, 2020 is going to be the year that I go full time. I booked my first large headliner, which was Dean Del Rey, to come into Austin, Texas and play the venue down on 6th Street. Right. And I had everything set. And of course, COVID hit. It was March 7th was the show, March 7th, 2020. And I remember I remember this specifically because Dean flew in. He was like, man, this is so weird. He's like, the airlines, there's barely any people on there. He's like, everyone's freaking out. He's like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, and at the time I had no idea. He's like, and people were like, oh yeah, we'll see how it all goes. But people freaked out. Obviously it shut, things shut down the next week. And we didn't have a very good time. We had 110 people there, but I was expecting like 300. And so it hurt a little bit in the pocketbooks. But the crazy thing in all of this is that as soon as that hit, and we kind of like that everything shut down, but then we started getting a glimpse of like what things were going to look like, and the funding started kind of rolling out with like the PPP loans and the stimulus checks and all that shit. Once all that started happening, I was like, you know what? I'm like, we're going to be locked down. I'm like, let's do something with this. Let's do comedy in the right way. Let's bring comedy to people while they're going through all this stuff. And I talked to some of the comedians that I knew locally, and then some other people that I knew too that were a little bit more established around the country. And we started to we took our show that we had done in Leander, which is called In the Meantime, which was created by Carter Anderson. Yeah, very funny Carter. Yeah. And so he was like, we did the show live for the first time in February. And then when when COVID hit, I was like, you know what, we could probably do this online. I'm like, this is how we do it. And so we planned it out, and then we launched it through Zoom, and we streamed it to Facebook, and it did pretty well. And then the second show, we did it again, but the problem was that like the Zoom wasn't connecting with the Facebook. So
I've run into this shit too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a pain in the ass. But what I ended up doing was I ended up streaming it from Facebook on my phone to watch my screen on my computer as we're doing it through Zoom. It was the most ghetto rigged thing I've ever seen. But it worked, and people and it still was like one of the higher viewed shows that we had, but it was so funny how it worked out. And then what was great is that although we did that, people started reaching out to me just saying love what you're doing, would love to help. And so I started getting help from a technical standpoint. I started getting help from a production standpoint, and it started to go well. At one point during the lockdown and the pandemic, we had 10 shows running. We had a show every night of the week, sometimes multiple shows during the week, and it was going good, man. We had a sponsor for a little bit, and then things started to die down a little bit. I think people got fatigued, just fatigued with all this stuff online. But the shows that we did, we never did a stand-up show. It was never online stand-up, because
Yeah.
I still to this day I don't think it
I
works
can't.
at all.
It doesn't. Let me ask you this though.
Yeah,
So when you said you were reaching out to all these agencies and trying to figure out, how the booking works and all of that, I always wondered because first of all, I didn't find out about you until now. Maybe I fast forwarding a little bit until like November 2020 with the Tony Hinchcliffe show at Vulcan.
yeah, hmm
We can get into that, how you got with Nick and all that stuff. But um, like, how easy is it to pick up the phone, call agency, and say, "Hey, I'd like to book fill in the blank. How do I go about?" Like, did anybody tell you? Maybe that dude did that you talked to, but like, I always think about like how the amount of hierarchy and paperwork and logistics and just bureaucracy shit that has to happen in order to book somebody like a nationally touring comic. Or like you
yeah.
said, you try to reach out to the people, to Chris D'Elia's people. Like, how that blows my mind because I'm thinking there's got to be so many layers just to get to the guy who's going to say, "Yeah, this is how much it is. This is how it works."
Yeah, so at that time it was harder than hell, man. It's like, but it didn't deter me because I'm used to like I grew up in the world of sales. Being an entrepreneur, you got to learn how to sell. So, and I grew up like most of my jobs before starting my own business with sales. So getting rejected has never been a hard thing for me. I'm used to it, and actually, I embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
But so I never got deterred about actually reaching out to him, but it was hard. I mean, and honestly, like they didn't give me the time of day. Like Adam was the only one that took the time to spend just 20 minutes on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that, right, he still had to make the right decision for his client. So at the time, like we were trying to work out some deals, and he was still a little hesitant about doing something with me because I was a new, in their eyes, a promoter, booker in Austin. And Austin at that time, pre-COVID, there really was the Paramount, and then which was Moon Tower and Moon
Yep.
Tower Festival,
Yep.
and then there was Cap
And Cap
City,
City.
and that
That's
was
it.
it. That was
Yep.
it. And the reason for that, I mean, all right, I'm sure I'm going to get backlash for this, and I'm going to say it because this is what I believe.
Go ahead.
Cap City was a horribly run business, and a horribly run business because they ran a monopoly on the industry, on the comedy in Austin for 35 years. I don't know all the details. I only know what I've heard from other people. So if I'm wrong by this, I'm happy to stand and be corrected on
Mm-hmm.
this. But from what I hear, is that they would try to run people out of town, or they had a large radius too, like a no non-compete radius clause. And so even like now that their Cap City's coming back, they're run by a new ownership. They still
Right.
have, I think, one of the persons in there, but they're run by the Helium Group, which runs a very similar ship
Mm-hmm.
organization where they strong arm people. And it's a well-known thing within the industry. And as much as people say they love Cap City, like the end of the day is like Cap City said, if you're trying to do comedy shows in Austin and you're not going through us, you're not gonna be able to do it. They're like, comedians will get blacklisted, people get run out of town. So it was just it was bad for the community though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's bad for it's
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy for comedians, and it's bad for the Austin community. Like there was never a really large scene here in the first place. And imagine if there was, for a city that was growing so fast, especially pre-COVID,
Mm-hmm.
you would think that they would have more opportunities, but it just never got to that point. Plus, like when you went to go watch comedy there, it was very outdated. The tables, there was like lunch chairs and tables, and it
The,
was uncomfortable to sit
I've been
at.
I've been going there since 2002.
Okay.
And I would look, and I know those people. I mean, I'm not a comic. I'm not in the production world. So to me, I'm just a comedy fan, and that was the place to be. So I was there all the time. I got
Yeah.
to. I was telling who did I have the other night? Charles Adams Jr. That
Uh-huh.
I was a judge on The Funniest Person in Austin 2 years in a
Oh,
row,
nice. Awesome.
and then I entered in 2019 as a comic. But to me, and this is a recurring theme that I've interviewed and talked to a lot of people, and this idea that you're in the same you're in the same boat, right? You're trying to
Hmm.
grow scene. you know, Austin, of course, is known for its music and all that. And now comedy is kind of creeping up and music is dying really. And so we all trying to do something and all trying to play our parts, whether you're doing shows, you have open mics every night. There's people moving here, which is great, more opportunities for everybody. But the idea that there could be beef between, or someone is being a dick about, someone coming in, or, this cliquish kind of atmosphere that we got going on. Like, I don't get that. Austin has, the thing about Austin that I've noticed early on is that you got, if you're into the entertainment industry, you're bound to meet the right people who are going to help you, grow your shit.
For
Whether
sure.
you're a musician, you're an artist, you're a DJ, you're whatever. Like, there's these key, like, movers and shakers, if you will, that it's very a collaborative type of environment. And then when it came to comedy, I was like, I don't. It wasn't so much the case. And I've heard stories
Mhm.
too from, Rob Morris from the Romo Room, the one you're telling me now about Cap City, and or just comics getting cliquish and not letting, new guys trying to get on and all that. It really blows my mind, and I think it's fucked up, and something needs to be. I don't know what can be done really. Just don't be a dick. It should be a lifelong rule for people, I would assume, but some people
Yep.
just don't buy by it. I don't get it.
I I agree, man. It's a silly thing, and I think what it comes down to is that certain organizations kind of run themselves like that because they I think they just like they're scared, right? Like they want to corner that market so they don't have to worry about competition, and they kind of come from a different background where like in certain industries or certain markets you could do stuff like that,
Hmm.
where it really shouldn't be that way because it's like anything else. Think about it this way. I mean, like look how many just look at like craft beer, right? Like how many damn brands are there? Or go to Amazon. How many damn brands sell the same type of like health supplements?
Hmm.
They're all made by the same damn manufacturer. The difference is that it's the label that's put on top of it. And
Right.
so it's no different when it comes to the world of comedy. Honestly, it's like there can be multiple comedy clubs in Austin, and there will be at the end of this year. And what's going to come about is that each one of them are going to be forced to really find their niche, right? Like to find out what is their value proposition, what do they bring to the market that
Hmm.
the other ones that don't. So that way, because that's the only way to really separate yourself, you're right. Like you have to like, and that's the problem. You have to look at this from a business perspective, and the business perspective says that there's always going to be competition, but you have to find what you do differently that no one else does, and then own that shit and run with it. And unfortunately, that's just not always. It hasn't been that way in the comedy world. A lot of places, no matter whether it's here or in other parts of the country, they still run that way, and it's going to shift. It's already shifting. It's going to shift even more.
Yeah.
Like the industry itself is going to be flipped on its head by the end of this year, like guaranteed. It's going
Mm.
to see a major shift where power is going to be brought back to the comedian, um, where these comedy club and owners aren't going to be able to strong arm people, and it's just they're not going to have that anymore. So, and it's good. Like I think everything happens for a reason, and this is healthy. It's healthy because the industry has been stuck kind of like in old school mode. It's like they've been stuck in the 80s since the 80s, and we're in 2021, and it still hasn't evolved. So
Yeah.
it's time.
What's interesting is that business aspect of comedy that you're bringing in, and all these other, I guess, movers and shakers are bringing in. Music didn't have that so much. Which
Mm.
it is. There's not. Oh, sorry. There's not really like there was not really an infrastructure for people to thrive in music to begin, not to begin with, but it's kind of it died off. But it's good that at
Well,
least was that.
I was just gonna say, music had its shift when like streaming music became a thing, right? When iTunes became a platform for people to listen to music, when Spotify and Pandora came up,
Mhm.
when Napster, shit, I mean, when Napster came up,
Yep.
that's when actually although some people might say it killed it, what it did is it killed it for the larger companies, right? Like the large corporations that made money off of these other people. That's when they lost their control, and that's when the power came back to the artist, really, because now you have people like Chance the Rapper, who never had a major deal. The guy makes millions of dollars by doing his own tours and releasing his own albums. You have these SoundCloud rappers or musicians that get found on there. You have people like Justin Bieber, who was found on YouTube. You know, yeah, like that. The thing is, the power has shifted, where you don't necessarily need a Def Jams or a Interscope Records to really make a career anymore. And I think that's what happened with music that kind of shifted, and that's where comedy is going towards. I don't think there's going to be like a streaming service that necessarily like makes it more accessible. I just think there's going to be more developments that happen, because I know it's not a perfect industry, and there's a lot of stuff in there that is still shady and works against the comedian, a little bit. And so they being the artist, they kind of get the short end of the stick sometimes, in some of these deals. And so like perfect examples of, like, you look at what happened with Dave Chappelle, right? Like Dave Chappelle literally got screwed out of his own name. Like, he didn't own the show, the Dave Chappelle Show. He didn't own it. He walked away because he didn't want to do it anymore.
Right.
And they still owned his fucking name. And it's like, how does that make any sense? Like, anyone in their own right, like, if I sat around, I was like, if I woke up one day, I was like, man, Dave walked away from the show. He's not getting paid, but I still own his name. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that. Like that's the problem. I wouldn't be able to say, I wouldn't be like, fuck. I'd be like, fuck, man, that's horrible. This is horrible. But there are too many people out there that just don't give a shit. And those are the people that are running the business. And so it's got to shift. It's got to come back. But, it also goes to show, like, his video that he did, the Unforgiven video,
right,
that really opened up the eyes and say, hey, you don't, like, that power is there. Like, he has that power now that he can come out and speak out against this stuff and explain it in a way that people can understand and relate to, so much so that they will boycott watching that show. That is an incredible show, one of the best shows ever to be made. Yeah. And they will stop watching it because Dave asked them to. And not just because Dave asked them to, it's also because of how shitty that situation exactly is. And so what happened? Like, Netflix stopped putting it up. Netflix was the first one. And I think Netflix is a great company. They said exactly what they should have said. Like, Dave, I'm sorry, we'll take it down. Then HBO Max took them a little bit, took them a little bit of time, but they finally came around to it. And then now he's got the rights back to it. And he's got the rights, and he's going to probably relaunch it, I think is what I've heard. And so
relaunch it? What do you mean relaunch it?
Yeah, he's going to start doing this Chappelle Show again. They're going to start making new shit.
Somebody told me that. Yeah, somebody told me, oh, Dave Chappelle is going to be doing something huge, like by this summer or something like that. By the way, can you hear my sister next door or no?
A little bit, but not that bad.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
It's not distracting. Yeah.
So how does 2020, how does the connect with Vulcan happen? Because you did the venue, which is literally a block down the street.
Yeah. So 2020, we started doing the online comedy shows, and those were going well. And I had some people that were bringing on to help grow it, and people were jumping on board. They're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I want to be part of it, blah, blah, blah. So we were doing all this stuff. I had a handful of people, and one of those people was Sarah Fleming. Sarah's an awesome person, very well connected in Austin. She had worked for a media company out in San Antonio, and because of COVID, she got laid off. So she was looking for new opportunities. So I had her come on to help out a little bit. And then again, just being a connected person, she saw Nick, the owner of Vulcan. He put out a post on Facebook saying how Vulcan was reopening. They had been closed for 8 months, and that they were looking to bring on other types of acts, shows, like comedy shows were one of them. And they were just trying to really pivot to survive during the COVID, experience. And so being a comedy was one of them. Sarah sent me a screenshot. It was like, hey, you should talk to him. And at that time, I was I was looking for venues to possibly, I was toying around with doing live shows again, because I saw some other people starting to do them. And I was like, oh man, should we get back into it? But I knew we had to find the right situation. Like we had to find the right partner, but we had to find the right partner that also was prepared to make it safe for COVID. Because I didn't want to do show. I wasn't like an anti-masker. I wasn't like, I wasn't one of these people that didn't believe that COVID was going on. I truly did believe, and I still do. But at the same time, like I wanted to get back out there and do something in a safe manner. So I talked to Nick, finally got around to talking with Nick. He gave me a rundown. I gave him a rundown. We struck a deal. It was a great deal for both of us. And he's like, just run and do your thing, man. He's like, let's just do it. Book it out. So I had already had contacts with the agencies. Okay. This is the funniest part of this whole story. I already had contacts with the agencies. One of them being ICM, which I brought in one of their clients, and I had a couple other people, and I was like, all right, let's bring them in. So I started booking it up, and first 3 shows. So the funniest thing, okay, like to go back to the agency side, once I started reaching out to them, they were like, oh my God, they were talking to me. Some of them were still hesitant. Like the larger agencies were a little hesitant, but even the smaller agents, they were jumping on board. So we struck some deals. And we had 3 shows that did pretty decently. We had Ida Rodriguez, who I'm a big fan of. I love her. She came out and she did, I think, her second show. And she's a bigger name, right? Like she's got some experience. She's got some clout behind her. She's got like a half an hour special with Tiffany Haddish on Netflix. And she also has a deal with HBO that she's supposed to put out another special soon. So I was like, oh man, I'll book her. She'll be a big name. She'll draw in some people. She actually didn't sell that well. And I do believe it was the COVID that's really kind of what did it. But fast forward for our 4th show, we brought in Craig Conant. I don't know if you know him, but he's kind of like the claim to fame. He got famous on the internet just from some of his viral stories that he has. And if you've never watched him or listened or seen him do stand up, you need to. Like, dude is hilarious.
I'll look him up.
Yeah, he's got some of the funniest stories, man, in the world. And so he came. So we booked him. He came out. He ended up bringing Ali Makovsky as the feature. And so between the 2 of them, we sold out that show. Like we went from like selling kind of like half in the first 3 shows and to selling every table. There's 35 tables in Vulcan, and we sold out all 35 of them for that show. And so we had about 100 people there roughly. And still, everything was COVID safe, wear mask. The Vulcan's very large. It's like 10,000 square feet. So like to be able to fit in 100 people was very easy to do it with everything being spread out and so forth. So it went really well. Went so well that I was like, hey, let's bring back Allie for a headliner in like a month. And so we did. And when she came back, she sold out. But our next show after Craig was actually Tony Hinchcliffe.
That's
Tony,
the first one I went to.
Yeah. So this is the one that really kind of put us on the map. Like Craig's show was good, but Tony's we changed a few things around. We fit about 143 people in there more, or 143 people versus I think the other one was like 102. So we had more people in there. It was a Wednesday night, so he was playing kind of like an off night because he was en route to do a weekend in Dallas, I want to say, and. So he came in town, and I remember like I had a little bit of experience with dealing with some people, but Tony calls me. I get this call from LA. This must be somebody. And I pick up the voicemail. It's like, hey, Brandon, it's Tony Hinchcliffe here. I was wondering if I could bring my friend Ron White to the show tonight. And he's like, call me back. And I was like, all right. So then he sends me a text message. He's like, the great and powerful Ron White wants to come, but he wants to park his tour bus as they're parking on the street. I'm like, holy shit, like Ron White's coming. I'm like, it's 6th Street. Where the hell are we gonna park a fucking tour bus? like, what are we gonna do here? So I'm like scrambling, trying to figure all this stuff out, working with Vulcan and their GM and Nick to get everything kind of handled. And then not even an hour and a half before the show, Tony sends me another text. He's like, Joe's gonna come too. I was like, fuck, really? I'm like, this is
Yeah, I was
awesome.
there. I was fucking
Yeah,
and
dude, that show
dude, it was so
killer,
good.
bro.
I don't know if you remember, but I had bought I bought a VIP table. Well, I bought a table. I don't remember if it was VIP or not, but I bought a table and I bought it on the second floor. I didn't look at the map right. And I
Uh-huh.
text Nick. I'm like, hey, I want to get it. I fucked up. I want to get another table. And Nick gave me your number, I think. And I text you and I said, hey, I fucked up. I need to get another table. And I bought the second one and I asked you to cancel the other one. I don't know if you remember that.
I think so. Maybe.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it was one of those because I know Tony. I know Tony too personally.
Oh,
And
nice.
when he told me that he was moving here, I was like, yes, fucking no brainer. Like I'm gonna go. I've seen him every time he comes to town, and
Yeah.
we got to hang out a few times. Now I'm just dropping names. I'm just bragging right now, but it was one of those because I knew I'm like if Tony gonna be there, and either Joe or Ron is gonna show up, and then sure enough, that was a fucking awesome show, man. That was so good.
It was, man. It was great because it was Joe's first time doing stand up in Austin
Mm-hmm.
since he moved here. It was Ron's first time doing stand up since COVID started,
Yeah.
and all of them just crushed it. It was just like it was amazing, and so that show actually put us on the map. Really, I owe a lot to Tony. I love Tony a lot, and a lot of people, like he's a certain, he's an acquired taste for some people. Let's just put it that way. And but I love him, man. I like let's say he's got the reputation of kind of being a dickhead, and I get along with dickheads though. Like
Uh-huh.
maybe because I'm kind of a dickhead myself too sometimes, but he really is a nice guy deep down though. Like that's the nice thing. It's like he always jokes around, and he's very particular, and he knows what he wants, but he's Tony, and that's what I love about him is that he's unapologetic, and he is who he is. And I think that's like the beauty in some people is that they are just themselves and they don't give a fuck what other people think. Like if you're going to be a dick, or maybe it's not, I don't even think it's him being a dick. It's just he knows what he wants, and that can come off as being a dick, right?
Yep.
Like if you're very strong in your opinions, people are going to take it the wrong way. And so I love Tony. I think he's a great guy, and I owe a lot to him, to be honest with you. Like honestly, like in all of this, when at the end of the day, like I don't argue with Tony with some shit. I'll sometimes I got to put him in his place. Sometimes he puts me in my place, but like it's a good relationship, and I like him a lot. So that show was incredible. It put us on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I owe a lot to him, and that's and since then I've been able to work with him, a lot. Him and Red Band pretty much come every Thursday for the most part.
Yeah.
Tony Tony just did a show with us on Saturday. He's done two of these, like his own shows, as Tony and his current friends, and he always rocks it out. I mean, like this past on Saturday, he had Ron White come out, Brian Holtzman, Genevieve, she's from LA, Detroit originally,
Mm-hmm.
lived in LA, and then I think they're out in like Dallas right now. But she was awesome too. And then surprise guest came out was were you
Joe?
there?
No, I
Yeah.
wasn't there, but I know Joe
Oh
showed up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe showed up at the end, and that was the second time in 3 days that he showed up. Like Joe was on the Thursday show, and they showed up on the Saturday show, and it was great, man. It's amazing. It's been incredible and a fun ride. It's funny to talk about what we did in the beginning and kind of how it all progressed, and then the support that I have from Nick has also been a huge part of this, right? Like I wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Nick has been a huge supporter, and this is not to like to my own horn, but I work my ass off. Like I work a lot. Like I'm a very hard worker, and anyone who's worked with me knows my work ethic. And so he recognizes that, and we have a good working relationship, and we've become friends through this whole process. But he's been awesome, and I know that everything that we've done at this point, I wouldn't be able to do without people like Nick and Tony and Red Band and all the people at Vulcan, and everyone that's helped me out with BLC. Between Sarah, and then we've expanded to do shows down in San Antonio, which I
Yeah, I
got a
was going to
buddy
ask you
down.
about that. Because you got
Yeah.
Eddie Griffin and Adam Ray you've been working with. And I'm like, so how did the San Antonio Connect happen?
So to be strategic, if you want to really, so this is the thing where like some of these comedy clubs have power over others, is because some of these comedy clubs have, 8 or 9, sometimes more. Like the Improv has how many clubs across the country?
Right.
And that's why, like, if you're in with the Improvs, then you're sitting in well. And so, but what it comes down to is that if how you can leverage, like, one way to offer a value proposition, right? Like I'm talking about how to be different from other people, is to have other places for people to go do comedy. And so we were setting up, and we are setting up a route in Texas, San Antonio, Austin, going to be going to Houston and Dallas. Those are the places that we want to be able to set up shop, so we can bring in some of these names that don't necessarily need or want or don't have the opportunity to go at some of these other clubs. Because like some cities, like Dallas and Houston both don't have a lot of comedy clubs anymore, especially with COVID that came up. Houston has the Improv and they have the Secret Group, and that's really about it. Dallas, I think they have one club there. Addison has the Improv.
Yeah.
They got Hyenas in Fort Worth and Hyenas in Dallas, I want to say. I don't know. I remember, but it's all the cities don't really have a lot of clubs for people to play it. So by us offering kind of a unique model where it's like we don't necessarily have our own comedy clubs, but we have venues that we turn into comedy clubs and allow these people to come to, is what really helps us. We are able to do more comedy in more places. Now, San Antonio has been quite interesting just because it's an interesting market in itself, right? It's not at Austin, where Austin is conditioned to go out and see live shows because of the live music, background that it has. Dallas and Houston being very large cities, they're accustomed to going out and doing things as well. San Antonio is kind of just a weird market, man. It's been
Look, the best part of San Antonio is Austin, is what we say. You haven't heard that one yet?
No.
Dude, it's the running joke. The best, because people want to actually go out and do stuff from San Antonio. They drive up here. That's really, people San Marcos, same thing. People from even Waco would drive all the way down to Austin. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but I know, like, what's in San Antonio? You go to a club in a shopping center. It's kind of weird.
It is weird.
It's fucking weird. There's a club and a Starbucks right next to it. You're like, I don't know. It's too much parking. Like, where I want to hop a little bit. I don't want to go to Starbucks. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird, man. And that actually, speaking of San Marcos, that's another area that we are going to be doing some comedy shows in. We have one set up starting in the summer. Actually, we're bringing Mark Norman down there, and so
good old Mark.
yeah, man. So we're just doing our part to provide opportunities and stage time for comedians, and get paid while they do it, and at the same time bring really good, high quality comedy to the people, man. And that's our goal. Has been from day one since we started Big Laugh Comedy, and it's fun. And so San Antonio has been interesting. Like we had Eddie Griffin down there. Eddie is the coolest motherfucker in the world. Like, so like people, I got in touch with he had a director of operations at the time. And she kind of gave me the lay of the land with Eddie, saying that like he's a very particular person, and then he's very opinionated, and then there's things that come up. So she prepared me essentially for the worst. But I listened and I was like, all right, as long as we don't do X, Y, and Z, we'll be fine, right? Like, yeah. I wasn't scared. Like, I feel like some people would be scared. They'll hear all that and be like, oh shit, like we have to deal with this person. I was like, no, as long as we keep everything smooth and light and have what he asked for, that's fine. Like, we'll make it work. So sure enough, Eddie showed up. We had a great weekend. Like, first of all, Eddie was so nice. He was gracious to everybody. We kept a very tight group around him, so there wasn't a lot of moving pieces, which I think helped a lot. But he had particular things that he needed in the green room. We got everything set up for him. He was happy. In between the two shows, he was still going. It's like, like some people you would think like when they get off stage, they want to decompress. No, Eddie was still rolling. Like he was going for like 20 minutes like off stage in between the shows, and we're just rolling. He brought out his boy Sticks, who is he's a comedian, but he has MS, and so he's got the crutches essentially.
Yeah.
And he was such he was so cool and fun, and it was a great time to be around him. But he was cracking on Sticks the whole time. He was like making fun of his disability, but like Sticks, like, but like that's what people think is like, oh, they don't want to be made fun of. No, they do want.
No,
to
they
be
do.
made
They want
fun
to
of.
be treated like anybody else. That's
Yeah.
that,
Well,
yeah.
we had a show 2 weeks ago that we had 2 dwarfs, small people, at the show, because Sarah, who helps us out with the shows, she did a midget wrestling show on Sunday, like
Mhm.
3 days before, and so she brought 2 of these guys, and they've been doing this stuff forever. And they brought 2 of the wrestlers to come see the comedy show, and
Mhm.
so they sat up there front and center, and it wasn't until like the last, like, or last or second last person to point them out and was like, holy shit, we have a midget in the house. And they went up to, literally, the small people came up to him afterwards, was like, listen, thank you so much. We went through how many comedians, and it took you, the second to last person, to actually recognize us and to point it out during the show. He's like, thank you. He's like, that was awesome. And so they want that attention. They don't want to feel like they're being treated special. So but yeah, Eddie was great, man. And the great thing was, is like, that weekend we had Fahim Anwar
Yep.
playing in Austin, and he sold out that Saturday show. And I was staying down in San Antonio to make sure everything ran smooth. It was like our first real big show down there. And so I was staying down there to make sure everything was running smoothly. We were up to like 3:00 in the morning, or I was up to 3:00 in the morning the night before. I didn't get more than like maybe 3 hours of sleep. I got up, we were taking care of stuff. I had to do some work. And then I drove back to Austin to catch the beginning of Fahim's show to make sure everything was running smoothly. And luckily, I had brought on like an associated producer to kind of run things, so I could do both.
Mhm.
And everything ran smoothly. I drove back to San Antonio
Holy
that
shit.
night to go see the show. Yeah, and I went, and I walked into the first. I came in between the end of the first show and the beginning of the second show, and I went into the green room, and Eddie was standing there, and he looked at me, and I was like, "What's up, baby?" He was like, "What's up, baby?" And then we were talking, and I was like, someone came up in the green room. They're like, "Man, there's a line across down the street out the door." I'm like, "Yeah, man, this show sold out." And he's like, "All right." I'm like, "Let me go. I'm gonna go check on a few things." And so I go walk out the room, and as I'm about to walk out, he's like, "Where are you going to?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go check up on some stuff." He's like, "What do you need to know?" He's like, "We got a line out the door down the street. The show sold out." He's like, "What else do you need to know? Come chill, have a drink with me." I was,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so this is good. This is good because here's the thing. You were saying earlier that you didn't want to, you give up on doing stand up because you'd be out at night and all those stuff. But now you're doing the same thing as a producer because you're running to make sure that everything runs smoothly, driving back and forth between San Antonio and Austin. But at least I'm guessing you're enjoying it. I've done a lot. Like I said, I produce a lot of shows, in Austin, and that's the thing. Like when especially if you're doing it by yourself, like if you're the point guy
Yeah.
and you're running around, you don't really get to enjoy it,
Yep.
And so, and he's absolutely right. You got to just chill. Like, look, man, it'll be what it will be. Things still. Do you have a whole team that on the ground, like with you, or is it
Yeah.
just you running around?
Yeah. So that's the beauty in all this, is like, as things started to pick up, like I've learned through life and other experiences, just that, like, you can't do something if you want to do something big by yourself. And
Right.
so I was always bringing on people. And again, it's the same kind of, like I said, like when you're doing good stuff, things get attracted to you, right? Like the universe throws you stuff, either it's opportunities or it's people or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's keeps on, like, it's what keeps on happening. Like I get put in touch with people who want to help. I met Davey Jackson, who's down in San Antonio. He's a comedian, but also a retired business person.
Mhm.
And when I say retired, he's young. He's like in his mid-30s, but he's got plenty of like background in the business world and some really strong things that he has on his resume. But he wants to do comedy, and so we worked out a deal. And he was somebody who like reached out. He was doing like a lot of shows when the pandemics or when things started to open up a lot, especially San Antonio. And I started to offer him some advice from the stuff that we were doing at Vulcan. And so
Mhm.
we would just start talking. And he's like, honestly, man, he's like probably the only other person that I feel like that can keep up with my work ethic, to be honest with you. Like as much as I put into it, he puts in the same amount of effort. So I was like, we just kind of, it naturally clicked. And he's basically runs the show down in San Antonio. I
Mhm.
run the shit up here. And even now at this point, like I'm getting to the point where I have other things I need to do beyond just producing the show. So I got other people coming on and helping out with producing the shows as well. So yeah, I mean, I got help. You can't like where we're going with BLC. There's no way I'd be able to do it by myself. And so so everyone, everyone, gets something out of it in some way. And
Mhm.
it's been fun, man. It's fun to be around other people that like enjoy comedy and want to have a good time and want to grow this stuff. But yeah, you're right, yo. It's funny to think about it. Like I said that earlier and I didn't even realize it. Just to like a good callback was I didn't want to put in the time because I had a family and all that stuff. But back then the reason why I was like stand up was a little bit harder was because it was a part-time job, and I knew like to be successful in stand up, you got to put in like
Yeah.
10 plus years, right? Like,
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah, that's a magic number that I've heard a lot. This 10 years, find your voice in about 5 or 6, and then practice it and really hone it, and then you hit 10 and some shit happens. And
yeah,
it is and at the end of the day, I don't know how old you are. I would say 30s, something like that.
37 or 38, actually, just turned 38.
I just turned 39. God damn it.
Nice.
Can't, I don't look it and you don't either. So I think
Yeah,
we'll be all right.
yes.
We'll be all right. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is. I mean, the Dean Del Rey story is unique. Like, here's a guy. Well, actually, no, because when you think about like Ronnie Dangerfield, you think some of the guys that really hit it hard later in life.
Yeah,
But
it's true.
when you don't have, and there's a reason why a lot of comics, like established comics, don't have kids until they're in their 40s or 50s. Bill Burr has 2 kids. Robert Kelly got his son late, and I'm like, I get it, because you have to be out there all the time and hitting up
Mhm.
mics like 3 or 4 times a night.
Yeah,
And when you live in a city like New York or LA, where do you have the chance and the opportunity to get on stage that much, like, you can't slack. And when you,
no,
and it's funny when you hear people say, "Oh, I've been doing comedy for 5 years," and then you see him perform and you go, "Nah, not really. You probably just half-assed it or took a break." It's not about when you start; it's about how often and how consistent you've been in those 5 years. And so
yeah.
don't add up the months. It doesn't represent how much comedy you've done. But yeah, it is. I think it's a young person's game, but you get in where you fit in, and I think you found your thing.
Yeah, exactly, man. You do have to find where you fit in. And it's funny because like 10 years is about that line, and that's what like scared me when I was first getting into it. It was like, oh man, if I
Hmm.
really want to do this, I got put in 10 years. Like, but I always thought like, oh, I could do this faster, and I probably could have if I really put my mind to it. Honestly, I have no doubt I could have made it work, but I chose a different path. I just felt like this was better suited for my skill set, and I
Yep.
thoroughly enjoy it. Like I thoroughly enjoy being behind the scenes and just allowing these funny people who are putting in the time and effort, and they've crafted their skill set, and they got it down. It's just amazing to be a part of that and just to help them. And everything happens for a reason, man. So it's just like you got to roll with what you see as better, and then that's what I saw. It was that was the opportunity. It is funny though, man. It's like I there's a couple comedians though that have figured this out to a science. There's a science behind it. They figured out the science. Like I understand that like you cannot really get around stage time, but there are some people. There's this woman Jennifer Fullwire Weiler. I'm murdering her last name right now.
Okay.
But anyway, she has a really interesting story where she actually started off as like a blogger, right when blogs were kind of coming up. She has a story where her and her husband converted to Catholicism, and then they ended up having like 6 kids, and she blogged all about this, and so she grew this like large following of Catholic people around the country, and so she was a blogger. She got to fame from that, and then she started to do comedy, and all her comedy is very like family friendly, clean stuff, but she didn't have the time, having 6 kids, having a business. She didn't have the time to really go out and do 8 mics or, in one night or whatever it was. So she started to develop a science. She showed me, she has a fucking spreadsheet, dude, that is color coordinated with jokes, timing, how high, how big of a laugh it will get, and all this stuff. And she's figured it out to science where she can go out and do some of her material, and she has to tighten up and stuff like that and still perform. But she put on her own tour in 2019, and she like sold out small theaters across the country.
Wow.
It was incredible. Maybe she would be a good guest for you, actually. I think her story would be awesome to tell.
I'd love to hear that, because here's the thing. Like I've talked to a lot of comedians, professional open micers, and there's not really a given formula to this. The only formula is get on stage. That's it. That there's no, you gotta hustle, you gotta get out there, you gotta write, and you just gotta perform. And the only way to test whether your shit is funny or not is put it in front of people. That's it. Even if it's a room full of comics who've heard your jokes 2,500 times, you still got to get out there and do it. And so it's interesting to hear these other people that like they were doing something before. I mean, shit, look at Piven.
Yeah.
So I saw him at Moon Tower. I think it was a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. It was like a special guest after like a goddamn comedy jam or something like that. It was I didn't tell, it doesn't matter. But I was like, holy shit, Jeremy Piven is actually pretty fucking funny. And
he really is.
He went from being, Ari and all that stuff, acting and all that stuff, and then now he's on stage doing comedy. And you can't knock that, because you're like, he found his thing.
Yeah.
Or another thing he can do, which is great. So another guy who went pretty quickly, Brendan Schaub.
Yeah.
He was a fighter, right? I'm not mistaken.
He was an MMA fighter.
Yeah, exactly. And then within 2-3 years, he was already like, touring. Well, he probably had to connect, which is great. But there's not really a set path. When Instagram, not Instagram, but like TikTok and YouTube influencers or celebrities are jumping in comedy as well. And I'm like, why not? The more the better.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, man. And I think that's the thing. And there is no perfect formula. Like you said, everybody's different. There's so many different. There's kind of like, it depends on where you go, right? Like if you look at people who come through the Comedy Store, for example, the Comedy Store kind of has a path for you, right? You come there, you work as in the door, or at the Comedy Store, right. And then you work your way up. You work your way up to being a paid regular, and a lot of times that will happen. And you see a ton of these younger guys. I mean, Tony Hinchcliffe, he was a door guy at the Comedy Store, and he worked his way up. Yeah, I mean, they're all, it's all kind of the same path for them in that sense. But there's no large Comedy Store. It's like, and it's because it's such a big city and such a high dense of comedians. It's high competition, so it's hard to like become a door guy there. But honestly, that's what part of our goal is with BLC, is to be almost like a larger Comedy Store for comedians. So there's a way to be nurtured through working and being around the higher level comedians, and also getting stage time and producing content and just doing that stuff. And so that's our goal moving into the future. A lot of what people will see right now is that we're producing live shows, but we are not just a live comedy production company. We are a comedy media company. And so you will be seeing a lot more of like video content, news related stuff around comedy, everything that's all encompassing when it comes to comedy and the industry, you'll see coming out from our brand in the very near future. And so it's fun. It's fun, man. And the comedy world is, I mean, this is probably one of the best industries to be a part of right now. There's so much opportunity, so much opportunity.
Need it. And then, after the shitty ass year we just had, it's and the state of the culture, I would say, comedy is the one outlet, and it's getting dangerous again. Ari Shafir said that a while back. It was like, it's great because cancel culture, and we had Trump for a few years, and people are pissed off, but they're looking for something to kind of laugh it off, or just enjoy themselves again. And comedy is really the thing. There's a reason why Andrew Schultz is selling out now that he's back on the road. There's a reason why he's selling out, because he was like, yeah, I'm taking this opportunity with COVID. I'm gonna do my shit on Instagram. I'm gonna do put my shit on YouTube, and I have a podcast, and now it blows up. So there was a void for a while, and I get it that as a comic, you take away touring, you take away being on stage, and now they're eager to just, I need to get back on.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you don't miss it? Don't want to go back just for the fuck of it? Just
I mean, I kind of do, but at the same time, like, there's so much going to be happening with the company that like I won't have the time, man. Maybe like once things get settled a little bit, but at this time we're like I'm in hyper growth mode, so I'm doing as much as we possibly can to keep things popping, because like I said, there should be competition, man, and like competition. Like at the end of the day, it's healthy. I think it's healthy competition. Right. I think it's great for the community. I think it's great for comedy community as well as the overall just community of Austin. But I don't want to be left in the dust, man. I always want to be number one in everything I do. So
all right. No, that's a great look. You're a business. You're definitely a business guy, and I totally respect that. But do you go out and check out like other showcases around town, like local comics doing stuff, or local production companies doing stuff?
Sometimes, like, I got a good relationship with Rob over at the Romo Room, and I got some comedian friends that put on shows and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I try to. I don't, though, not a whole lot. I mean, I try to get out there, but I don't do a whole lot, just because, like, from a talent perspective, I have so many people that just reach out to me unsolicited anyways. Like, it's like, if you want to have a lot of attention, you want to be an attention whore, become a comedy producer or a booker, and then you'll have all the attention in the world. So, but yeah, so I got a lot of people that reach out, but I mean, I would love to do that more often, but I just don't necessarily have the time for it. And I once we get to a certain point, there'll probably be other people that go out and kind of do some scouting and so forth and stuff like that. But I do try to put on like smaller showcases at Vulcan, just so I can see some of the younger talent and see what people are doing. But occasionally I get out there. So.
Oh, cool, man. Wow.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No. It does. It does. I mean, you have, from what I've seen, I've been to a bunch of them at Vulcan, the secret shows,
I appreciate it.
The big ass comedy jam. I've been to a bunch of those, and honestly, I couldn't put a face to a name or name to a face, because I get the emails on the VIP list. I'm like, what's Brandon? I'm like, I'm sure he's out here somewhere, but I don't know what he looks like. So it's good to put a name to the face, or face. I don't know what the expression is. And so it's been top notch, and you've you've set the bar as far as what it means to really put on a quality show. And by the way, a lot of other people are around town. And I think it's only going to go up from there. So I get the
Yeah.
competition and trying to stay on top and everything. I totally get that. Um, it to me it was something. It was the same thing with music, where I don't want to say music in Austin, where there's a lot of local talent, and when people are booking music shows, it's like, okay, where are the local people? Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. I get the process. You want to establish that, that standard, and then be like, all right, now that we got this down, who's out there doing shit that we can put on and we can work with, or whatever. I totally get that process. So I'm sure I'm sure down the road it is gonna happen, if it hasn't already. But I totally get it. Time is what's it called? What's the expression? Time is not a commodity, some shit like that. I don't even know.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm delirious right now. Point is, you're doing great things. I'm really happy
Thanks,
for you.
man.
I'm really excited for you.
Appreciate it,
Um,
brother.
I want to see more. I will see more. And now I know who you are. So when I see you around, I'll buy you
Yeah,
a drink.
definitely. Say
So
what's up, man. Yeah, come by. Always say what's up. I'm always accessible during the shows. I might not be able to sit down and have a full out conversation just because I usually get pulled in like 6 million
oh
different
yeah, I get
directions.
it.
But
I get it.
but for sure, love talking and seeing people. And that's the other thing too, man. Is like I think one thing that we strive to do, and it starts at the top, starts with me, is just being customer service focused, right? Like little things, like the little things always add up, like calling people by their names, smiling, being happy about the situation, thanking people for buying tickets, thank for
Hmm.
people for coming out. If people want a refund, give them a refund. Like, honestly, it's one of the stupidest fucking things in the world. But I know, as a personal, as a consumer going to comedy shows in the past, there was a few times at Cap City I couldn't make it because of whatever reasons,
Hmm.
and I couldn't get a refund. I'm like, seriously, you won't give me a refund? They're like, no, it's not refundable. I'm like, this is some bullshit. And so I take these experiences that I've had, that I've felt that weren't fair, and I've changed them because I can. Like, I control the situation, so I
Right.
can do this stuff. And I think it's better. Like, people are surprised sometimes when they give me a full out explanation. Like, oh, I got a doctor's note. I promise you, I was in the hospital. I'm like, I hope you're okay. Here's your refund. Like, it's not, at the end of the day, it's not going to make a big difference to me if you got like if $100 has to go back to you because something happened. Like, it's not about the money. Like, honestly, I could say, if I could do this and live my life very comfortably without having to make a dime from doing this, I would do this for the rest of my life. Like, I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And same thing goes with like drink minimums and stuff. Like, you have comedy clubs who are like, you have to buy two
To drink,
drinks.
yeah, to drink minimum. That's where they get the
You
money.
don't have to drink minimum at a place. Like, come and have a good time. You want to drink as much as you want, drink as much as you want. You don't want to drink that much, that's fine. Don't drink that much. But like, whatever it is, like, we just want you to come and have a good time. That's the key to this. And we're happy that you're choosing us. And
Right.
so, and that's where I think we're just stuff in general. I mean, like, in this day and age, I can't tell you how I get so excited to talk to customer service people that actually like talking to customers. Like, how amazing is that, right?
It's in the
Like,
name, goddammit.
it is in the name, but how many times do you talk to a customer service agent? They're like,
They don't want to be
sorry, there's
there.
nothing I can do. Yeah, sorry, there's nothing I can do. It's part of our policy. It's like, no, it's really not part of your policy. Like, you could do something if you wanted to, but they choose not to. And like, I get it, but it's like, that's why, like, I'm a sponge. I take these little things that I notice from everywhere, and I try to incorporate in what we're doing to give the best experience to people that are being and supporting live comedy, and supporting big laugh comedy, and supporting all the comedians that are part of it. So, if anyone's watching this or listening to this that has been coming to our shows, and especially to you back, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you so much. Thank you guys so much for everything that you're doing and helping us out. And it means a lot, man. It really does. Because it's not just about me, it's about the comedians, man. Like, honestly, like, I don't think people understand the type of people comedians are, right? They go through a lot. Like a lot of times comedy is their therapy. It's like they
Yes.
go through so much shit that when they get on stage, they have an outlet to release the stuff that's going on in the world. And talk about a time that people need an outlet to release their shit. This is the time for it during this pandemic. And so you know, you hear about the mental health issues that people have. And so just to be able to help them get onto the stage and get that stuff out and work with people and do the stuff that they love to do, I mean, that brings joy to me. It really does.
How long are you gonna wait until you show Delirious to your kids?
So what, Chris D'Elia?
Delirious or Raw or one of
Oh,
those.
dude. So my oldest daughter is 10. She has seen the ice cream part from Delirious.
I got
And
my ice cream. Wait, that's Raw.
oh, that's wrong. My
Right,
bad.
yeah, I got my
I always
ice
get,
cream.
yeah, I always get both those specials mistaken. So Raw is the one I grew up. Raw is the one I can
The
like
red suit. It's
pretty,
the better one,
yeah.
I think.
Yes, it is the better one. Raw is the one that I grew up on. Raw is the one that I could literally recite almost the whole entire set. And that's the one that I have showed clips of it with my daughter. Like there's certain, like the opening part, I wouldn't show her,
Yeah.
not quite yet. But like the ice cream bit, she's watched that entire thing and multiple times, and she loves it. She fucking loves it. She always says, "I got my ice cream." Yeah,
and you can't get none.
Yeah, exactly.
Want a lick? Psych.
Yeah,
I got my ice cream. You can't
when
afford it. You can't
Yeah.
afford it. And your father is an alcoholic. You can't afford it. You can't afford it.
That was good, man. That was real
Dude,
good.
trust me, it's so many quotables. Like I've been quoting comedy for 20 plus years, like all the time.
Really?
Whether it's Chris Rock, it's Eddie, it's Patrice, it's Bob Kelly, it's Richard Jenny, it's Carlin, it's all those guys. And I'm like, you know, you got to be a fan first. If you're going to be in this
Yes.
business, whether you're a comic or you're a producer, you gotta be a fan first. And it's one of those. It's a need at this point. It really is. It really
It
is.
is.
All
So
right.
yeah, man. Go ahead.
What's your dope shit you want to share? We'll do plugs right after that. Do you have something dope that could be a book, a
Yeah.
TV show, or something?
Nah.
Or website.
My website. I think it's dope as shit.
I say we're doing plugs after that. Like what?
Okay. All right. Show. Ted Lasso.
Is it
Have you
good?
heard of it?
The soccer one when he's a soccer coach or something?
Yes.
With
So all right.
Robert, no, what's his name? Sudeikis? Is it Jason Sudeikis?
Yeah, Jason
Yeah.
Sudeikis.
Uh-huh.
He like wrote it and produced it, and so good, dude. It's so the reason it's good is that like you would think it's like someone told me like it was like kind of compared to like something else. I forgot what they compared it to, but it is funny and it's wholesome and it's like positive. And that I love that. Like I'm a very positive minded person. And so to see a show that just like makes you feel warm inside, it's like if Chicken Soup could be a show, that's what Ted Lasso is.
Really? All right.
Yeah, man.
I'll add it to my list.
Because dude, it is so good and it's binge worthy. It's a binge worthy show. Like honestly, I think it got slept on. I did not know about it really at all until the snowstorm that was here. We got trapped actually in Denver. We were visiting my mother-in-law who just moved out there, and she's like, you guys need to watch the show. And so we started watching it, my wife and I, and now we just started binge watching. We finished it. We're like, oh, we're gonna be leaving on Monday. I think we were gonna get out after the weekend that we had there, and we were trapped there for 10 days, but we finished it, and it's just such a good show, man. I literally would watch it again, and we just watched it a couple weeks ago. It's just that good. It's funny as hell, and it's just and it's fun because like I've never seen a show on soccer either, right? Like
That's true, and especially a U.S. show. Like I'm from France, and soccer, people call it soccer first of all instead of football.
Yes,
that's another rant I can
go
on, but football with the foot, I call it. Like your
Yes.
handball's already taken. That's why you call it football. The other one. Anyway, yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I'll
Yeah,
add
so
it to my
check that
list.
out. I think that's a good one. Um, can I plug then now?
I
Like
gotta share
that's what
my
I do
dope shit and
best.
then we plug. Yeah. My
Oh,
dope,
perfect. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
my dope shit is I just checked out the new Sean Paul album on Spotify.
Oh,
And I
nice.
was gladly surprised. Like I'm a big dancehall reggae guy, and you know, Sean Paul's always been kind of he was like the chorus guy in the early 2000s, like
Yep.
what's his name, like T Pain was and like Akon was. He kind of fit in
Yep.
there, but he has a really dope catalog. If you go back to Stage One and Dutchy World, I think it's called something like that. Anyway, so came out with a new one. Buju Banton's on it, Mavado's on it, Agent Sasco's on it. There's a bunch of people on every song. There's somebody on it. So
Nice.
I liked it. I think it's solid. So go check it out, Sean Paul. I forgot the name of the album because I just went on Spotify and searched Sean Paul and it popped up. So go check that out. If you like some dancehall music. All right. So plug time. Where can people find you? All that good stuff. Shows coming up. I mean, I was looking at your calendar, man. You're full.
Yep. And that's not even like half of it. We're pretty much booked out till August of this year, and then we'll probably be booked out to the end of the year very quickly, and hopefully into 2022 soon too. So like I said, we're not stopping, man. We're just keeping this train rolling really fast, and you know, I don't like to do things slowly. So
Hey, to your credit, man.
there's
To your credit. You got to
yeah,
move fast
thank
to be
you.
one.
That's right, bro. So you guys can check us out on the website. Website's blcomedy.com. You can also check us out pretty much on every social media platform. On Facebook, it's you can just check it out, facebook.com/Big Laugh Comedy. Instagram, it's Big Laugh Comedy Network on Instagram. And so yeah, check us out, follow us, like us, subscribe, whatever you need to do. We got all these great shows, both in Austin and San Antonio. Summer in June we'll be in San Marcos, and then probably in May we probably will be starting to do some shows, hopefully at in Houston and Dallas too. We're knock on wood. I don't want to say the name yet, but we got a bigger old school person, but bigger name that we're doing a few shows in Texas with. So I'm happy we're able to get all this kind of up and running and rolling.
No, and if you go now, if you're watching this and now you know what Brandon looks like, if you run into him, tell him how much you enjoy the show.
Yes, thank you. You don't have to tell me in person too. Just screaming out on social media, that helps
Brandon,
us as
wherever,
well.
yeah, that too. Share,
Yeah.
comment, tell your friends. You know, comedy is the only art form you have to do in front of people, and so you know, tell your friends, come out to shows, buy a table, 4 top, 2 top, 6 top, whatever you need. But bring it out like that. When I came to the comedy jam, I didn't even plan on going out that night. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy a table for myself. and Tony and I ran into Tony at the door, and it turned out that my table was double booked somehow.
Uh-huh.
'Cause I bought it like 10 minutes
Oh, wow.
before I showed up, and Tony showed up. He was like, "You all right, back?" I'm like, "I did double book my shit," and he was like, "Well, you know, whatever. Just let me know if anything happens." But I ended up moving me to a better table actually.
Good.
So shout out to the staff over at Vulcan. It was a dope show. Really enjoyed myself. So yeah, BLC what blcomedy.com is the website. Make
Yep.
sure you follow the FeedBak everywhere on social media. Back BAK, of course, because that's my name. It's a pun. I get it. You get it. We all get it. Um, and yeah, we'll be talking to more comics, more people in the comedy world. Brandon, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate what you're
Absolutely,
doing.
man.
And
Thank you,
all
bro.
power to you. And you know,
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for putting this on. Thanks for having me. This is awesome, man. This is a great time. I had a great time.
look, you'll be back though. You'll be back. I'm trying. I'm gonna do some kind of rotation at some point and be like, "Yo, remember Brandon that I talked to back in March? Here we are, a year later. He's all over the
I
country."
I like how you put yourself. You did an impersonation of yourself with a higher voice. Really, hey, remember
You guys
us?
remember me? And don't forget us little people once you make it. I talked to you when you were nothing. No, I'm playing. And now look at you. You're booking people from SNL and from fucking what the hell, man?
All right. So next time we do the show, you got to do the whole show with that voice.
Oh man. All right. Yeah. You know what? Actually, you know what? When I see you at Vulcan and be like, "Hey, what's up, Brandon? I'll buy you a drink." And be like, "Who let you in here? Who let you in here with that fucking voice?"
Oh my god!
You
like,
know
your
exactly.
Voice, you catfished me with your voice on the fucking podcast, man.
You know exactly who I am. Hey, Brandon, it's me back. How you doing? Hey.
I'll exactly know. I was like, yo, get him a shot right now.
All right. Thank you so much, man. And all
Absolutely.
the best. Talk to you next time. Ciao, ciao.
Yes, sir.